Week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 12 kickers I'm ranking heading into week 2. The first guy's Justin Tucker. Who else would it be of the Baltimore Ravens? So Tucker, we know he's been one of the best kickers in all of football over the last 4 or 5 seasons. And Tucker last week, he had a pretty decent game. It was Tucker versus the Las Vegas Raiders on the Monday Night Football game with 11 fantasy points. And right here, he's got a good matchup versus Kansas City where it's going to be high scoring, where he's going to get few opportunities, and where this Baltimore team's going to have to put points almost up on every drive here. So I think we could see Justin Tucker trot out there a bunch of times in this ball game, and I think he'll hit double digits once again, kicking the football. The next kicker is Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills. So Bass, he's got a good matchup at the Miami Dolphins. And in week 1, he picked up where he left off last season with a double-digit fantasy day, hitting a 25-yarder, a 36-yarder, and a 44-yarder with an extra point in that one. So right here, Miami, I think it's going to be a low-scoring type of game where we're going to see a few touchdowns here and there, but not much, and a lot of field goal opportunities. And I think Bass, once again, will reach double digits, and he's in a high-powered offense that gets in the red zone a lot as well. So that's obviously always a good sign for a kicker, and that's also a good thing that he's versing the Miami Dolphins, who last week gave Nick Folk a decent amount of opportunity. So I think Bass has another good one. The third kick is Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs, so he's got the Baltimore Ravens coming to town, is Harrison Butker, and obviously he's in one of the most explosive offenses, if not the most explosive offensive in all of pro football. And Butker, each and every week, he's guaranteed at least 5 to 6 points here. And last week, 3 extra points, a 28-yarder and a 42-yarder for him. And now with Baltimore, we saw the Las Vegas Raiders score a lot of points, and Daniel Carlson have a good game kicking the football. So right here, I think Harrison Butker has another good one, and I think he'll reach double digits this week, where last week he just missed it by 1 fantasy point. The next kicker I got ranked this week's Matt Gay of the Los Angeles Rams. So Matt Gay, another game indoors here this week, and last week Matt Gay had a double-digit fantasy day versus the Chicago Bears in the home opener on Sunday Night Football with 11 fantasy points, a 53-yarder, a 26-yarder, and 4 extra points. And this week at Indianapolis, I expect more of the same here from him, where he's going to kick another deep one from 40 or 50 yards, I think, a few extra points, and maybe a chip shot or 2. So right here, he's one of the highly ranked kickers coming into the season. And so far, a good start it's been here for Matt Gay. And I think he reaches double digits or comes close to it once again this week. The next kicker is Robbie Gold of the San Francisco 49ers. So Robbie Gold last week, he had a great fantasy day with 14 fantasy points, a 46-yarder, 52-yarder, and 5 extra points. And this week versus the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly, it's going to be a good ball game, and I think he's going to get more opportunities as well. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it was last week versus a weak Detroit Lion defense, where the San Francisco 49ers went up and down the field easily in that ball game on the fast turf and the indoor surface. But right here, Robbie Gold, he's been one of the most accurate kickers in NFL history. I know he's had some trouble throughout his career kicking some 50-plus ones, but last week he went 1 for 2 from 50-plus, and this week maybe he'll get lucky again and hit a 50-plus yarder. But everything else under 50 yards, he's pretty much automatic, is Robbie Gold. And this week with another pretty good matchup at Philly, I think he has a good game. The 6 kickers, Young-Ho Koo of the Atlanta Falcons. So Koo in week 1, 2 field goal attempts, and he hit them both, but shockingly, it was only a 27 and a 24-yarder that Koo hit in that game. He had no attempts for a 50-yarder. And this week at Tampa Bay, they're going to have to try to keep up with them, even if it means putting 3 on the board here and there. But this Tampa Bay defense is pretty solid in the red zone. And I could see Koo once again having 2 or 3 field goal attempts. Hopefully they're from a deeper range than 20-plus yards here, where they're more like 40-plus yards. Because last season we saw Koo have a big fantasy season with a lot of 50-plus yarders. And this week at Tampa Bay, I think he's going to have an opportunity to hit 1 or 2 of those deep ones and have a good fantasy day. The 7th kicker I got ranked this week's Jason Sanders of the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills. So Sanders last week, pretty decent versus the New England Patriots. In week 1, he was Sanders. On the day, he had 6 fantasy points, a 44-yarder, and 2 PATs. But in this ball game versus Buffalo, I think he'll get more than that. I think he could push for double digits. Anywhere from 8 to 10 points is a definitely possible range here for Sanders. Last year, he was a top 5 kicker in fantasy points. And right now, some fantasy owners are jumping the gun a little, in my opinion. They dropped Sanders in 4% of fantasy leagues. I know it was one off week, but this week, Buffalo, they're a good team in the red zone where they don't give up a lot of touchdowns. So that could be a plus thing here for Sanders, where the Dolphins and him got to settle for 3 points. So right here, I like him at number 7. Number 8, Matt Prater of the Arizona Cardinals. So Prater, a lot of people were down on him coming into the year, but right now he's been picked up actually in 5% of fantasy leagues after the waiver period ended a few days ago. So right here, Prater in week 1 at Tennessee, 35-yarder and 5 extra points. He's in an explosive offense. The guy that's going to play indoors at least 9 times this season. Obviously with 8 home games is Prater, and obviously the 1 game at the Los Angeles Rams this year. So right here in week 2, he's got a good matchup, and he's at home versus the Minnesota Vikings. And we saw Evan McPherson put up a good fantasy day kicking the football. And I think Matt Prater could have another 8 to 10 point fantasy day. We know he's got a big leg. He plays indoors once again like he has the last few seasons with the Detroit Lions. And like I mentioned, if you're in an explosive offense, you're going to have so many opportunities to have a good kicking day. And that's what Matt Prater definitely could have once again this week versus Minnesota. Number 9, Brandon Mcmanus of the Denver Broncos. So Mcmanus in week 1 had a pretty solid outing versus the New York Giants in the Denver Broncos 27-13 victory versus the Giants. Week 1, he had 8 fantasy points, a 27-yarder, 34-yarder, and 3 PATs. Here in week 2, they're at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, I expect the Denver Broncos to be in the red zone a decent amount of times in this ball game. And Brandon McManus, we know he's got one of the best legs in all of pro football. We know he plays in a kicker-friendly field as well in Denver, obviously in Mile High. So right here this week, it's in Jacksonville. Should be great weather as usual, 80, 85 and sunny most likely. And he's going to have good chances again. Like I mentioned, the Jaguars give up a lot of points, and we saw that in week 1 versus Houston where they gave up a 40-burger in that one. So right here, I think McManus could get 3 or 4 opportunities and have a good fantasy day where he could reach double digits as well. The number 10 kicker is Mason Crosby of the Green Bay Packers. So the Packers, it was a total nightmare in week 1 versus the New Orleans Saints, only scoring 3 points in that ball game. But right here, they got a great matchup versus the Detroit Lions of the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football here in week 2. And in week 1, like I mentioned, they only scored 3 points, where Crosby put a 34-yarder through the uprights. And here versus Detroit, he's going to get many opportunities. Detroit can't stop no one on offense. And we saw Robbie Gold last week score 14 fantasy points. I don't think Crosby will put up that many points, but he definitely could put up double digits. Great matchup. Green Bay at home, Monday Night Football. And right here, I think I got him safe at the number 10 spot is Mason Crosby. Number 11, Ryan Suckup of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Suckup, obviously, on one of the best offenses in all of pro football here. And last week, in week 1 versus the Dallas Cowboys, he hit a game-winning field goal as time expired. And what a ball game it was, but Ryan Suckup had 7 fantasy points in that one, 4 PATs and a 38-yarder to walk it off. And right here, another great matchup, obviously, for Tampa Bay, where they should be in the red zone early and often versus this Atlanta Falcon team coming to Tampa in this one. So right here, I think Suckup, he could put up a double-digit game as well, or even 7 or 8 points. But these guys are key guys to have on your fantasy team, getting kickers who play indoors, obviously, and getting kickers on high-powered offenses who are going to have many opportunities. And I think this week, Suckup at minimum will have 2 or 3 field goal attempts, and obviously 3 or 4 extra points as well is very possible for him. And the 12th and final kicker I got ranked this week, Tristan Vizcaino of the Los Angeles Chargers. So right here, he's only owned in 2% of fantasy leagues, but right here in week 1, we saw Vizcaino have a good fantasy kicking day, pretty solid, 27-yarder, 33-yarder, and 2 extra points. And now in week 2, the Dallas Cowboys are coming to Los Angeles, and that means a lot of fantasy opportunities for this whole Charger offense as a whole. Like I mentioned, I would start pretty much most of your Chargers who have a big role, and obviously Tristan Vizcaino is going to get many opportunities in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him have a good fantasy day. So right here, on a whim, I got him at number 12 because of matchup, and also that Los Angeles, they play indoors at SoFi Stadium. So that's the top 12 kickers I got ranked here heading into week 2 of the fantasy football season.